Interview of David Fuller. This interview is being conducted by Jennifer Seavey from Wright State University's Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Dave's home in Lewisburg, Ohio. It is 2 p.m. on November 8th, 2016. Okay, where and when were you born?
I was born in Portland, Maine, 1956. At the Osteopathic Hospital on Bright Avenue.
Who are your parents and what were their occupations?
My dad was William Fuller. He was a maintenance mechanic at a bakery. My mom, probably till I was 9 or 10, was just a housewife. And then she had to go to work. She had to get the hell away from us.
Do you have any siblings?
I got one sister, 6 years younger than me.
Did she serve in the military?
No, in fact, she's very rarely left Maine.
Okay. What were you doing before you entered the service?
Jeez, driving trucks, getting in trouble, fighting, partying, riding motorcycles, the usual.
Where were you during September 11th?
I was on the recovery room floor of the Tip City Veterinary Hospital on 25A. My dog Kona had a 5¼ pound tumor removed from his abdomen the day before. And I heard the boom because there was an explosion supposedly around the Veterans Hospital down the south side of town. But none of that even bothered me. I was thinking about my dog. I had him for 10 years. He traveled everywhere with me. We were the only time we were separated was when I was in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what branch of service were you in?
The Marines.
Marines? And were you active duty, guard, reserve?
Active duty until I got in a motorcycle wreck and did my break time and stuff. Not very active then.
Why did you choose the Marines?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. It was the best. Point blank, it was like, yeah, these guys do the coolest things, so, yeah. There was no place else. At the time, we trained the SEALs, and we trained the Rangers, and I just wanted to go fight somebody, and the Marines were the first one in.
Well, what was basic training like?
Well, the sand fleas were the worst, and the PT and the close order drill was the best. It was on Parris Island, and it was in the spring. Every day between false dawn and dawn, the air was just thick with sand fleas, and these things were tiny. They would literally land on your eyeball and bite your eyeball. Yeah, they were wicked. And then it was the same way from sunset to full dark. They were just horrendous. I mean, literally, you felt like they were taking your hide off. And you weren't allowed to smack them. You weren't allowed to do anything. You weren't even allowed to flinch. If you did, everybody went to what they call the Rose Garden, which was just this big patch of dirt where they just PT'd you to death until you were sweating and filthy and your mouth was filled with dirt and you were tired of screaming and the sand fleas had just eliminated, you were just like one whelp from the sand fleas because they were ever present, but as long as you didn't kick them up, They didn't bother you at night and they didn't bother you during the day. But if you rolled around in the rose garden, they were just murderous. And the thing I remember most, every morning, because I got recycled, every morning for 16 weeks, boot camp was 13 at the time. The first thing that happened was just the highly spit-shined, galvanized trash can would come flying down the squad bay. And then it was get up, get dressed and get out. And you were standing outside being eaten alive by these sand fleas about 3 minutes after you woke up. Every morning. And the drill instructors, because the barracks were 3 stories, the drill instructors would stand up behind the concrete promenade and just stand there and watch you. Everybody, because you're all, I mean, you can't not move. You can't. And you would stand, you could hear them up there snickering sometimes because they knew, you know, and if you heard them laughing, you knew you were going to the Rose Garden. And this is before breakfast. So you'd show up at the chow hall just filthy, sweaty, filthy, stinking, and you did your day like that. You know, the whole freaking day you did like that. And finally, I think it was like in the 5th or 6th week, you get familiar enough with your drill instructors to actually ask questions that come to mind outside of, you know, what the hell am I supposed to be doing? Why am I doing this wrong kind of thing? And the first question is always, because you notice the drill instructors are standing out there laughing and nothing's biting them. And you're like, I mean, you're just twitching from head to toe because these things are so tiny, they literally fly up your pant legs. And they're like biting the calves of your legs and behind your knees, and they fly up your pants, and literally they bite your nuts, and they fly in your eye and in your ear. It's like they get under your eyelid if you blink, and then they bite to the inside of your eyelid. It's sheer torture. We didn't need to be marched into a swamp to get disciplined. All we had to do was stand out in the sand fleas for like a minute. And finally someone asked him, why don't you guys get bit? And it was so simple. Avon Skin So Soft. Just rub that stuff on, they would not touch you. So, for the next 2 weeks, everybody's getting boxes in their mail of Avon Skin So Soft. But they could have told you the first day, and it would have made close order drill and stuff like that a lot easier, and it would have eliminated a shitload of rolls in the Rose Garden before breakfast, you know? But no.
Do you recall any of your instructors?
Oh, absolutely. Hell, every last one of them. Staff Sergeant Harris. He was the senior drill instructor, the way the Marine Corps structures it, at that time anyways. The senior drill instructor was Mommy. And then there was Sergeant Brown, he was the PT freak. And all of every single platoon has this, every set of drill instructors has the same structure. Sergeant Hammer, a little short guy, all muscle, and he could flip in a New York minute. He could go from being a nice guy to being your worst freaking enemy. And he had the short guy complex, so he was your worst enemy at the worst possible times. He was the one that used to punch us in the stomach first thing in the morning. I mean, your eyes aren't even open yet, and you're just standing there at like this sleepy attention, and he would do this snap and pop in front of you and say good morning or something, you know. He had like 3 different things he would say, and then he'd just drill you right in the gut, wham! And if you fell down or flinched, oh man, you went into gear locker, he beat your ass, and then you PT'd up on the quarter deck all morning long while everybody else went to breakfast and all that shit. You would literally PT until failure, kind of, until you just could not move anymore. And he did that to everybody. And you never knew when he was gonna do it, because he was the same dick when he came out of the drill instructor's hut in the morning, so you never knew what you were gonna get. And then there was Sergeant Seago. He was just a straight loudmouth dick. He yelled at everyone about everything. You were a maggot. I mean, that was the first thing that came out of his mouth, and it got worse from there. Sergeant Brown was from California. He's big, tall, built dude. He's like 6'5", and built. And all he did was PT. And everybody loved him because that man could sing some fucking cadence. When you were out there on the parade deck, practicing close order drill, you had that snap and pop with him. Because he was, I mean, he inspired you to be good at this. And he didn't do it by yelling and shit like that. He did it by numbers. He said, this is what cadence is all about. And he explained that, and we could snap and pop. I mean, first week, we were one heel click, one hand, you know. And Sergeant Seago and Sergeant Hamrick and Staff Sergeant Harris couldn't fucking stand it because they could not get that out of us. Sergeant Brown and I were pretty close because I could run with him. When we did our PT, our 10-mile runs and stuff like that, the two of us were out there running backwards around the platoons, singing cadence and stuff. And he would bring me aside, he's like, dude, you've got to fucking relax. If you're gonna be a Marine, you can't be you. You know, and he ended up getting busted. He got caught out in town with a joint in his pocket. When they came and picked us up from intake, he was just a corporal, and he got sergeant like 2 weeks later. And where Staff Sergeant Harris had, right before free time in the evening, everybody sat in a semicircle around his chair, and you could bitch. And you didn't have to use sir sandwiches. You could talk like, not like you were on the street, you couldn't cuss and stuff like that. But you didn't, it wasn't a surly bubble, you know what I mean? You didn't have to speak at attention and all that stuff. And you could actually say what you thought, which was a fucking trap. Because next morning, when all four of them came out of that drill instructor's hut, if you didn't like something, you fucking did that all day long. And it was just non-stop after that. Sergeant Brown was probably, he didn't give a shit about you if you didn't PT and if you couldn't drill. He was like the physical one. Seago was the one to break you down. Hamrick was the one that either not helped you up, drove you up, or knocked you down. And I mean, that was the dynamic for the four drill instructors that you had. And, well, I got recycled because I beat the dog shit out of Sergeant Hamrick one morning. He punched me in the stomach one too many times. And I never moved because I'd been fighting ever since I was like 3 or 4 years old. That's all I did. I was the smallest kid in the neighborhood. So, you know, I got picked on from the biggest kids on down. And they learned. But this particular morning, Hamrick was mad. He wasn't mad. He just, okay, it doesn't bother him. We're going to, you know, level it up. And he punched me in the face. And I just stood there for like And he just looked at me like, "Yeah," and asked me, does that hurt private? And you just say, sir, no, sir. The private loves pain, sir. If you said, sir, yes, sir, God fucking help your ass. That's when you went to the gear locker. And he did his little snap and pop down to the next guy, and I'm just standing there. And there was a black dude from DC named Carr. He was into martial arts too. And he's just standing there looking at me, and his eyes just like, they just slitted. He was, we were good friends. He was pissed. And it's like, his eyes never left mine, but they never left the back of Hamrick's either. And when Hamrick did his little snap and pop and did his right face in front of the next recruit, I just stepped out and just drilled him right in the temple. And he went down like a sack of potatoes, and that wasn't good enough. I picked him up and just drilled him in the face, and they came tearing out of the drill instructor's hut and shit. And it was pretty funny. Sergeant Brown was gone after that too. Remember I told you he got busted? We got a black guy in there that was the black version of Sergeant Brown. And he took me in the gear locker. He's like, Brown said I needed to speak to you. And his name was Brown too. And he gave me basically the same pep talk that Brown always used to. And it was like 4 days later that I clocked Hamrick. And I don't remember, he never came back to our platoon. We'll see, but I got recycled within like 2 days. So he wasn't back there the 2 days I was still in that series. And Lieutenant Hoey, from right up here in Van Wert, it's like 45 minutes, an hour north of here, straight up 127. He took me in his office, and he's like, yeah, Sergeant Brown thought a lot of you. I think you're just a pain in the ass and you're not freaking worth it. And he gave me this whole like 15-minute lecture about how the Marine Corps was going to change me, that I was not going to change the Marine Corps, and that's all there was to it. So I better get that out of my head right now. And I tried to explain to him, that's not what's in my head. And he didn't want to hear it. And 2 weeks later, he just wigged right the fuck out over something that I did, ripped off his $300 Smokey Bear hat, and just stomped it into the Rose Garden and resigned his commission. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen, well, I've only seen one person's face that purple because of me, and that was Deputy Alvarez in Los Angeles County Jail. I literally drove him so insane that all someone had to do was just go, and you would see this purple line rising out of his shirt, and it would just encompass his entire head, and his ears would be purple, and the tops would be this red like I've never seen before. And the only thing he could do was kind of spit in Spanglish. I drove that deputy freaking nuts for 6 months, literally. And he tried, he tried beating me with a flashlight one time. And when I got released, I stole his flashlight. But anyway, back to the Marine Corps.
So what was your military occupation?
Well, Gunny Kersher, my second company got in, my second series in the Marine Corps, he went into recon at 17 years old. And he had it in his head that anybody that could PT like this guy, he'd be good for recon. He's a thinker, he's very aggressive, you're not gonna fucking slow him down real easily. And he thought somewhere in recon, and he actually set me up with Gunny Androlowitz, somewhere in recon, someone could reach me and make me into the Marine that I had the potential of being. It's like they thought I could be another Chesty Puller without the rebellion. But it just doesn't happen. Chesty Puller made it in the Marine Corps because he was enduring all of their initial battles, Tripoli and all of that stuff, where a kill crazy psycho was the man of the hour. They never let him be the commandant of the Marine Corps because he was a kill crazy psycho. It's like he'd be out there shooting up Congress and stuff if they didn't do what he wanted him to do. So they never, even though he earned it 100 times over, they never allowed him to be the commandant. And Gunny Kersher kind of looked at me that way. It's like, dude, you've got all the potential in the world, but you're this fucking loose cannon that we can't tighten up. And it's like, we try to wear you out, and we end up worn out. You know, he's like, you're not going to break the Marine Corps because there's so many of us, but I'm afraid the Marine Corps is not going to break you either. And he asked me, he said, would you consider that? And I'm like, fuck yeah. I get to go swimming and shoot stuff and play in the jungle, yeah. So they put me in recon, but as soon as I got to Onslow Beach, this dude rotated from Rota, Spain. He was an admin. He wasn't in recon. He was just an admin. And ordinarily, even if you're an admin, your MOS is recon. But this guy wasn't. And while he was in Rota, he bought a Harley Davidson FXR through the PX over there. And the first day he rode it, mind you, he'd never ridden a motorcycle in his life, he tried to race this guy on a BMW and he high-sided it into a ditch. Scared the living shit out of himself, scratched the bike up a little bit, no big deal, but he never rode it again. And I always had Harley Davidson shit all over my locker and stuff except for inspections. I had a Harley Davidson t-shirt on underneath my camis and stuff, instead of a white t-shirt, even during inspections. You know, it's like during inspections, it's a white Harley Davidson t-shirt and commando, you know, and they get like twisted over that shit. I fought with the Marine Corps as much about wearing underwear as I did my mother. And that started like '87, so at 17 or 22, do you think you know what I mean? Yeah, it's already, but this guy, we started talking, because everybody told me, oh man, that guy's got a bike and he's never gonna ride it, he's scared to death of the freaking thing. So I started talking to him. He's not somebody that I would, at that time, that I would have associated with, but I wanted this bike. And I ended up getting it for $500. And in essence, it was new. It didn't have, I think it had like 62 miles on it. And it was just all scratched up, the aluminum primary cover. And it wasn't fancy. It was kind of just the plain Jane version of it. But he had buried the left side of it in the embankment in the ditch. And it like bent the shifter lever back and the foot peg bracket and scratched the primary all up and stuff and the paint. And he sold it to me for $500. It took me like 25 minutes to fix all that stuff. And when I came riding up to the company area on it, Gunny Androlowitz was like, didn't you sign a fucking agreement? Because when you go to recon, you have to sign an agreement. There's no surfing, no skydiving unless it's like in jump school, no anything, no hang gliding, nothing dangerous. They're like, we're putting almost $200,000 into your fucking training. You're not allowed to do stuff except go to war that could hurt you. And riding motorcycles was one of them. You weren't allowed to own them, nothing. Well, I didn't see the point. And I liked the motorcycle better than I liked recon. It sucked living out there on Onslow Beach. The fucking wind howled 24/7 off the ocean and shit. And when it came off the beach, it was like sand, you know, just being pelted with sand constantly. And when it came the other way, it was even worse. It was out of the swamp and stuff. Yeah, it was pretty wicked. So, I mean, I went to Okinawa and I trained with the Rock Marines. That's where I found out about the Kumite. I wanted to fight the Kumite so bad. It's an illegal, full contact martial arts fight to the death that they stage in Thailand every year. And fighting to the death, it's not mandatory, it's just allowed. You know, you can be merciful or not, whichever you want. Sonny Ying did a really good movie about it. And Jean-Claude Van Damme was in it. I liked it. Yeah, I wanted to do that so bad. We trained with the Korean Rock Marines, jungle training. And they're like 4.5 feet tall. And they're mean little fuckers. I mean, yeah, they're like JPs. They will tear your ass up and not even break a sweat, you know? And one of them and I got along really well, and he was telling me about his time in the Kumite. And it's like, dude, you're like 4.5 feet tall, and you went down there, and you're back here telling people about it? And he had other people, because it's kind of like, if one guy in a village enlists, all his buddies will enlist too, and they don't separate them. They go through the military it's kind of like the buddy system used to be in the Marine Corps or in the American, military. They were, I wanted to do that so bad, but I'd have to wait until I got out of the Marine Corps. And then, see, I had my motorcycle probably 3 months when I got broadsided on it. I lost 4 inches of bone out of my leg. They wanted to amputate it, but I was like, no, I was born with this fucking thing and I'll die with it if that's what kills me. And we were like, okay. They just left me in there. And they wouldn't give me anything for pain. They swore to God I was on drugs. And actually, I was going to sell the bike. And I had just had dinner. Just left the house. And it's like, I'm laying there, all of a sudden here comes my girlfriend and our roommate, and they're both just at everyone. And I kind of passed out. I woke up the next day with this woman. She had my leg like this, and my cowboy boot was still on my foot, but my foot wasn't attached by anything but like a little strip of skin over here. And she comes walking and she goes, well, first thing we gotta do is get this boot off. And I'm just, yeah! Woke my girlfriend up. My girlfriend pushed her away, and she's like, what the? And she was a Navy orthopedic surgeon from San Diego that had an experimental bone regeneration technique, and I was the perfect guinea pig for it. And it worked. I mean, this leg is 1.5 inches shorter than this one because after like 3 years of plaster, I had enough. It's like, fuck this thing. And I just didn't let it heal. So, yeah. And let's see. I don't know, it's like 6 or 7 months after the wreck. I just got a call at home one day from the company gunny, and I could see his face, but I can't think of his name. He's a great big Indian dude, not South Asian Indian, American Indian. Just big old square-headed guy, and he accentuated it with his high and tight, and he did not like me. He did not like me. When he came to our company, it was before I was in my rank, and he just took me aside and he said, you know what, I don't like people like you. You give the Marine Corps a bad name. And it was never the Marine Corps, from all of them, it was my Marine Corps. You give my Marine Corps a bad name. And I said, well, you know, glad to hear you're thinking about it anyway, kind of thing. He never liked me, and he was so thrilled. And when I answered the phone, he's like, Fuller, get in here. I'm like, dude, I got a shave. He's like, no, you don't have to do anything. Just get in here. Okay. And that's when I signed and I got a general under other than honorable conditions. But that was after I got booted out of recon, went to the brig, got out of the brig, and got sent to a tank battalion. They put me in a tow unit. You know what tow missiles are? Two-launched, optically sighted, wire-guided missiles. It's an anti-tank weapon mounted on a Jeep. And they made me a gunner. It's like, okay, well, we went out, they have a tank range out at Onslow Beach, and I was demonstrating the missile, and my captain was doing the presentation, and I had a script that I was supposed to follow about loading it and all this stuff, but it ended before I fired it. Well, I kind of went off script, and just melted this friggin' tank, this hulk of a tank sitting out there. They were all impressed. I wasn't. I did 30 days in the brig for that too.
Okay. So what kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form when you were serving?
Well, I was friends with all the derelicts. I still talk to Keith Atencio. He lives out in Bernalillo, New Mexico. Other people, yeah, I talk to a lot of people still.
That's good.
And they're still serving. A lot of them are, well, places that we shouldn't mention on film.
What years were you served? What time frame did you serve in?
78 to 80. I think I hopped on the plane. You know, it might have been January. I put 4 on that because I was thinking it might have been April, but I think it was January of 78, like the first or second week. What threw me is, and I just remembered it. It was like, I can remember sitting in the recruiting office the morning we were supposed to leave, looking out through, it was in the arcade building in Portland, Maine. And like had an all glass front. And I can just remember like these huge snowbanks and stuff and the people walking by. And we went out and got in a, like a, well, just a van. I went down to the AFES, it was at the main post office. Did our physicals and all of that stuff. Yeah.
When you were, when you had free time, what did you do when you were like overseas and?
Drank, did drugs, and got in trouble. As much as I could.
Okay.
When I was in Okinawa, I mean, Okinawa is like a plethora of drugs and alcohol. And you can get, you know, absinthe and really good stuff. Real ouzo over there, made of opium. That's why it's not, you can't get Greek ouzo in this country because real ouzo is opium based, and the absinthe is opium based. You can get, they call it ouzo, but And it's got the same licorice type flavor, but it's not opium based, and I can't remember. I used to know what it was made from. But that flows like water over there. You know, if you're just drinking Jack Daniels or something, you're a sissy. And they had blues that were like Dizoxins over here. They were like a mixture of speed. God. And I'm just going by the buzz, I don't know what the chemical breakdown. They were like some kind of speed and a minor hallucinogen, kind of like mescaline, made you feel flushed and giggly and stuff like that. And then they had Xerox that was like, you were gone. You were just tripping your ass off, just going nuts. And then they had the JPs to take care of you when you did that. And beat your ass and run you face first through the gutter. And over there, the gutter is the sanitation system. The very first thing they tell you when you arrive on Okinawa is don't get drunk and fall face first in the fucking gutter. It's the goddamn sewer. You're gonna get sick. These people have pathogens over here that you have no fucking idea about, and you're like, okay, I'm glad to hear that, you know? I mean, that's literally the very first thing that comes out of their mouth. You don't get to go out in town for the first 10 days that you're there. And kind of you got all this stuff pent up, and you hear about it from, because you're in the Fleet Marine Force now, you're not just a recruit. You know, so you talk to your sergeants and you talk to your corporals that are stationed there that are training you and stuff. And they tell you about, you know, going out in town. Yeah, go ahead. Knock a JP's cap off, see what happens. It's shit like that. And if you get, I don't know, I always incite the worst in people. I'm a horrible instigator. So it's like, I'm kind of contagious to people like that, and they would start telling the real stories, you know. And then, if you're lucky, you'll all go out in town, like the first night that you can go out in town, you go out with somebody that knows the place. Because there's, I mean, it's just crazy in Kinville. You know, it's all B-girls, every girl's a B-girl, the bars are just nuts, all kinds, just, you can't be amazed at the things that you'll see. You know, otherwise you'll just be walking on like all night long. But that's the first thing they tell you. Do not go out there and get snot slinging drunk and end up face first in the gutter.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you feeling when you came back home?
Oh, fuck. I had to come back here. That's exactly what I felt. I have way more fun out of this country than I do when I'm in this country. For some reason.
How are you received by your family and the community?
They're like, oh fuck, he's back. But see, I didn't. When I was released, for lack of a better word, discharge doesn't quite cover it. I didn't go home. I was never close to my family. My dad and I hated each other. We were like fire and gasoline. And my mom, I just kind of tolerated being around her because she's the one that did the cooking and the laundry, you know. I tried to stay away from him as much as I possibly could from probably about age 9. You know, I had my own room and stuff, and it's like in the back door, in my room. If you wanted to talk to me, you had to come out there and fuck with me, and that was, everybody, my family had a weird dynamic. My mom and my sister were best friends, but we all tried to avoid talking to each other. You know, my mom and my sister were over here doing their thing, and these three entities avoided any kind of contact or speaking if they possibly could. So, when I finally did show up at home, the first thing my dad said was, "My son's been gone for years. Get the fuck out of here on that goddamn loud ass piece of shit." And when I pulled up in the driveway and shut my motorcycle off, the first thing I heard was him yelling obscenities at a game show on television. It's like, fuck, nothing's changed around here. And I was walking away from the front door, just kind of laughing. You know, I had a ton of places to go, so I wasn't worried. And I had just slung my leg over my motorcycle when my sister came tearing out of the house in this huge purple bathrobe with Noxzema or something all over her face. She was just getting ready to go to work or something. I don't know what, she was getting ready to go somewhere. And she was yelling at my dad, "That is David, you fucking dumbass." And she came tearing out and gave me a great big hug and stuff, which amazed me because we never got along. You know, I hated my sister because for 6 years I was an only child. And all of a sudden she comes along and it's like, just get the fuck out of here kind of thing for me, you know. And it was like that forever after that. My dad hated me and he doted on her. My mom kind of coerced my sister into being her caretaker until she passed away. And that was what the whole thing was about. They knew I wouldn't take care of them. So they were like, "Look, get out of here. We've got work to do to manipulate this kid into this." And it was after my dad passed away that my mom, in like just a fit of lucidity, blew all this information out at her, you know, about, "Yeah, we fucked you really good, blah, 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 blah." And then there was a huge schism there for the longest time, but they still lived together. My sister was 52, 53 years old before she ever lived on her own without my mom around. I couldn't do that. God, I couldn't even stand to have somebody else live here with me, you know? I like people that much. So yeah, it was just kind of like, oh shit, he's back. Hope he finds something to do that isn't around here. And then I actually had my mom selling coke for me. Yeah. When I went to Maine, I had 2 ounces of just, it was like 93% pure. It was straight off the boat in Fort Myers, whacked just enough not to melt. And I hooked up with all my old friends like the first 3 days I was there. And within 5 days, the phone was just ringing off the hook at my mom's house, and I was just out partying and stuff like that. And she would take all the orders and write all the stuff down and everything, and I'd come home for dinner, and she would give me that paper, and I'd just go, you know, bag it up, and go out and party that night and deliver it all. She did that for the longest time. And when I left Florida, because when I got out of the Marine Corps in North Carolina, I kind of gravitated that way. And a friend of mine knew David Allan Coe very well. He was the ex-president of the Orlando chapter of the Outlaws, my friend Redneck. And David Allan Coe lived just outside of Orlando. And when he came out with the album Outlaw, he showed enough class to come to the clubhouse and say, "Look, I want to name my album this. Is this cool with you guys?" So Redneck was like, "Well, fuck yeah." And we became friends. And they became friends. And then knowing Redneck, I met him, and then we ended up, David Allan lived like 2 doors down from me. And when I left Florida to go up to Maine, he gave me this bag of Florida Sensibilia buds. They're just like, every one of them's just like a little teeny Christmas tree about that big. And they're like dark green with a little red and stuff in them. They look just like a decorated Christmas tree. And God, like the second or third night I was there, when I got there, my mom was kind of like, well, I don't know what you're going to eat and stuff, because, we don't, I don't know what the hell you're going to do. We've turned your room into the bird room, and I don't know what you're going to eat, because we can't afford to feed you, and I'm like, don't worry, I got money, I don't care. I don't need anything, just a place to throw my shit. I'm not worried. There's plenty of girls around here to sleep with, And, like the third night, my sister asked me, just come to dinner every night so that we can talk, like, before I have to go to bed. I'm like, okay. The third night, I brought that bag of weed with me, and I rolled a joint. And I didn't know if my sister got high or not. I don't care, I'm gonna get high. If I gotta sit here and talk to people, I'm gonna do it high. And I lit it, took a hit, and handed it to her. And amazingly, she took a hit and handed it back, and we smoked this. And suddenly my mom was like all giggles and stuff, and she's like, well, I remember beef stroganoff was one of your favorites. I'm going to get the stuff for beef stroganoff on the way home from work tomorrow. Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, and what else, what other, of your favorites do you want? I'm like, any of them? In fact, right when you guys pulled up, I was talking to my daughter about a recipe for pot roast. I'm kind of looking for this taste that, it was my mom's pot roast. I'm trying to figure out how to replicate that in a crock pot, not a pressure cooker. But anyway, and my dad came out and he looked at my sister, you're smoking that shit. I said, shut the fuck up and go and sit down. So he did that. And suddenly my mom just kind of opened up. I'd never seen her like this. And she made the statement, if I was younger, I probably wouldn't mind smoking pot because it smells real good. I don't know what it's like. Is it like being drunk? And I was like, well, how do you feel right now, Mom? She said, oh, I feel great. That's, and blah, 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 blah. I'm ready for another cup of coffee. And it's like, you're high. Welcome to my world. And she's like, oh my God, this is what it's like. Oh, that's great. So she never condemned it anymore. It was pretty funny. Okay. I think I got along better with them then than I ever did. And let's see, that was the last time I saw him until 2004. And then I got along with him really well. Because it's like, you can't tell me what to do. Yeah.
So how do you think the military experiences you've had affected your life?
Well, I got a general under other than honorable discharge, which didn't really hurt my feelings. But I don't think, it really hurt my life. I think when I went to work for Tri-State Motor Transit, it helped me get, even though I had a crap discharge, I got security clearances higher than the president. I've been in all the DUMS except for Denver because they hadn't built Denver yet. Been to Area 51, Thiokol, Utah. I've been to places that no one even knows exists. And none of that, all of that was active until I got my first felony, and then they pulled all that stuff. But I was sick of working. I was sick of hauling for the military. It really sucked. I used to haul stuff around here. Well, I would haul from like Area 51 to Cape Canaveral, not Cape Kennedy, that's two different areas. And there's a huge dam under Cape Canaveral. You know what dams are, right? Deep underground military bases.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like 36 of them in this country. There's one under Wright State University. Nobody even knows about it. Right now, there are 70,000 UN troops being stashed under there. And I would have never had that if I had been in the Marine Corps, I don't think. Because I did get letters. I mean, when you apply for that stuff, there's a process, and people in the Marine Corps approved it. So I don't know, but that was really the only major effect. I don't think, because there was like a handful of us that had those kind of clearances, and I honestly don't know if it's because other drivers were like, ah, fuck that, we don't want to do that stuff, or if it's because they just couldn't qualify for them.
Okay. What are you going to school for right now?
You mean my major?
Yes.
Well, my major is anthropology, but I've got 3 years of psych, 3 years of sociology, and 2 years of biology. So I can pretty much give you the history of the social pressures or social stressors that caused your psychosis, and then treat you for it, kind of thing. The reason I switched to anthropology was because I want to be the first one to go talk to the Sentinelese. They are the last uncontacted tribe in the world. They live on North Sentinel Island, which is in the Andaman Nicobar Island chain, south of Burma. And I had an elective at Sinclair. It was just an introduction to anthropology. And the very first project we had to do, without any lessons or anything, it was like the very first week, was to write a research proposal for an indigenous tribe. Well, I could have done Sunwatch, you know. Not me. I just Googled the most remote tribe in the world, and boom, up came the Sentinelese. And there were like 5 videos. One, and I learned later on that it wasn't even actually Sentinelese, it was the Jarwa that Pandit was talking to, but one was of an Indian anthropologist, T.N. Pandit, contacting these people, allegedly for the first time, with a retired cop named Singh. Go figure. Singh is like the name of all the cops in India. And I just wanted to talk to these people. And I started researching them, and it's like, well, I know their reputation is they kill anyone that will come near, that comes near their island. And they're vicious little bastards. They're sub-Saharan pygmies that have been on that island for 60,000 years. Well, I could see why. I mean, they would go close to the beach with power boats and, you know, hey, hey, and stuff, and yelling stuff at them in Indian or in Hindi. And who knows what those little guys thought that meant, or what that meant to them. And these guys are like 5 feet tall, but they've got 8 foot tall bows and 4 foot long arrows that they can ding you with from 200 yards away. They're badass little dudes. And it's like, the more I researched it, the more I developed this plan to kind of reverse engineer my existence back to the Jarwa, to where I'm capable of living naked in the jungle with them just like they do. and in the process, getting co-signed by the Sentinelese or invited to their island. And in 2009, I had just published Meth Monster, and I was in like 40 different writers groups on Facebook. And this 14-year-old Indian girl from Ghaziabad, India, just messaged me and asked me to read her poetry. Poetry, I'm finding out, is a very big thing over there. Praise poems and all of this stuff for all these different gods and deities. I never understood the import of it and why she was so committed to this and stuff. And I just helped her with flow and making everything a real poem. I sent her a dictionary and a thesaurus, and just basically online taught her how to use these things, and critiqued no more than like 5 of her poems. And the last one I critiqued for her, boom, she won first place in India with. And at that time, I mean, I didn't know jack about the Indian culture. In fact, I was still driving a truck. I mean, the only thing I had to my name was that I published Meth Monster, and it was booming at the time. She sent me another poem after that, and I watched the YouTube clips of her getting her award and stuff, but because everybody was yelling, and you really can't hear what was being said. So, you know, I was like, yay, hooray, good for you, you know. She sent me another one, and she wanted to critique. She sent me her finished version of it, and I was like, way cool. She won second place in the region, which encompassed like China, Tibet, Nepal, Russia, you know, Japan, Korea, Indonesia, all that whole like hemisphere of the globe. And wow, that was like a really big thing. I didn't know. I mean, in America, if we do something like that, we take credit for what we did. You know, if you write a book and publish it, yeah, you had people help you, but that's your book, that's your baby. Over there, it's a collectivist society, so they give credit to everyone, from their mom for birthing them, to all their teachers and their parents and their mentors and stuff like that, and their tutors. And I never knew, I knew book sales was like really good in India and in that part of the world. I mean, Meth Monster sold for 1,680 rupees. You know, that was a cool thing. And I didn't know why, but every time she got these awards, starting with the awards that she was getting first in her grade, and then in her school, and then in her school district, and on and on and on, she was giving me credit for this stuff. The American author D.C. Fuller was, you know, was her tutor and her mentor, and I was like, never knew anything about it. Well, when I got deep into researching the Andaman Islands and stuff, and I actually found a book, it's kind of an ethnography, but it was written by a geologist that works for, oh God, a big oil company. Her offices are in New York City, but she's Indian. And she got a grant from the Guggenheim to go to the Andaman Islands with, I mean, this is why her grant was approved, was because she was going to do new ethnographies on the Jarwa and the Onge. But when she got to India, she was a woman. And they're like, nope. You're not talking to anybody. They kind of shepherded her around and let her see the DMZ between the Jarwa Reserve and the civilized part of Great Andaman Island. They took her down and kind of, you know how politicians walk through a place, you know, like a disaster area, and they're surrounded by Secret Service and the military and the sheriffs and all. They kind of did that with her through one village on South Andaman Island, and that was it. And she wrote a book called The Land of the Naked People, and it was actually very good because she busted her ass to kind of get around everybody and actually get in to talk to some of these people in person. And then, of course, she got caught and, you know. And I emailed her through my vendor's dashboard at Amazon. And the first email that I got back was like, oh my God, you're Purnima Raput's mentor, DC Fuller. I guess so. I mean, is that good, bad, or what? You know, I don't know what's going on the other side of the world. And she was like, oh, you know, you're just like a hero over here and all of this and that. And for until the NSA took my Dave Fuller profile, the one that I used to post, you know, on WSUN, the NSA shut that thing down like this time last year. I had a lot of friends from India on there, and because it's like her whole circle of people in her school sent me friend requests, and they didn't do the same thing Purnima did to the point that they did, but they would, you know, what do you think about this, and so on. And they used to call me Baba and stuff like that, you know, teacher. It was pretty cool. But she said, Purnima's uncle is the minister of the Andaman Islands. I'm going to email him and tell him that we spoke. And I was like, for whatever that's worth. I figured this guy's, you know, he's high up in the Indian government. I'll never hear from him. The next morning, I woke up, there was like 4 emails from him, not from his office, from him. And we just started a conversation. I explained to him my idea for reverse engineering to the Jarwa and to the Sentinelese, and he told me, I can't do anything with a psychology degree, because originally my intention was to start a rehab center here in Eden. And I can still do it. I'm just not, because my bachelor's isn't in psychology, I won't be accredited. But like my daughter was saying, people are searching for life coaches and stuff every day, and you'd be perfect for it. I don't know why she thinks I would be, but I don't know. But anyway, so he actually told me, if you can come here with an anthropology degree, I will talk to TN and we'll give you carte blanche. And the next thing I got was an email from TN Pandit. And I call him TN because his name is like this freaking long. It's like Pandit. And I told, you know, he emailed me and told me about his experience and stuff, and I explained to him what I intended to do. He's like, you know, no one ever even thought of that. No one ever even thought of that. And basically he said the same thing. If you come over here with an anthropology degree, we'll go do it together. You got the all-day hookup, dude. So that's how I ended up with anthropology. Okay. And my first point of contact was Jeff. Mm-hmm. he was literally scared shitless when I walked in his office. I mean, you could see it on his face. I don't think he'd ever had anyone like me before. But you know, we're buds now. I asked him to be my faculty advisor. And you remember Tyler Hennigan?
Yeah.
Tyler and he used to be an SI for Kathy Cook's class, her biological anthropology class. And I would just go just to brush up. And a lot of times, it was just Tyler and I, and we would go over, you know, everything. He'd straighten me up on things that I had screwed up, and then we still had like a half an hour, 20 minutes or something, so we just sit there and bullshit. And he told me, he's like, dude, Owen's just fucking tough. You don't want him for a faculty advisor. People hate him. So I went like the next day and asked him. And, well, I think you can see in the classroom that he and I get along. He'll be up there lecturing and he's talking right to me. And a lot of times, if it's a subject that he knows I know a lot about, he defers to me. And I mean, I enjoy his classes. I like him as a professor. And it seems like I'm drawing him out of his kind of social awkwardness. I mean, he gets very, what would you call it, animated in class now, and he even tells his own jokes and stuff, you know? And I see a big difference in him from last spring to now. And it's like, when I go to his office for office hours, it's like two buddies talking. You know, it's not, the relationship has nothing to do with professor and student, because he's kind of got, I mean, for all my life I've studied the occult. So all of the things he has mainstream knowledge of, I know all the backstory on. Like Zoroastrianism and things like that. It's just, I don't know, it seems like a natural progression in my life.
Oh. Okay. Well, is there a message you'd like to leave for future generations who will see this interview?
Rules were made to be broken. That's the only message that I could give you. Rules were made to be broken.
Okay. Was there anything else you feel like we haven't discussed or you'd like to add?
I've got one small story that you really might enjoy. The way you go to boot camp is they fly you in to Charleston, South Carolina. You all gather. Charleston's like a little tiny airport, little tiny thing. When you get off the plane, you walk in, and there's two guys. Well, somebody said that they're actually Marine Corps chasers, but they were in dress blues. And they're like, you know, if you're going to PI, everybody over here, we want you all in one area. And you fly in, I mean, people fly in from all over the country, you know. And I ended up sitting next to this dude, Jan Sanderson, from Lincoln, Nebraska. Big old corn-fed country dude. Just had that kind of laugh and stuff. But he was great. I mean, he was a riot. And together we were like, oh, look out. Well, as you're sitting there, you know, this bus comes. It's like 3 in the frickin' morning, 2 in the morning, whatever, you know. You're kind of tired. You just want to hang your head in a corner somewhere for 15 minutes. And these two guys just go out and get on the bus. You're like, oh, okay, cool, I can sleep on the bus. You get on, and Sanders and I sat together, and we laughed and talked all the way down to Paris Island. And when you pull up in Paris Island, the sun's, well, it's false dawn. The sky's just lightening up a little bit. And all of a sudden, these crazy motherfuckers in Smokey Bear hats come screaming on the bus, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. You don't have anything but the clothes on your back. And all, you know, you're kind of like dazed and confused because you've been up forever and all of that stuff. Well, Sanders and I, when you come off the bus, there's all of these yellow footprints at 45 degrees. That's the position of attention. You just come streaming off the bus, and Sanders and I, instead of doing this, we turned backwards and did this. It took him a few minutes to realize that there was two fucking knuckleheads turned the wrong way in their formation. And all four of them came screaming down there, what the fuck is your major fucking malfunction, recruit? And we're just standing there smiling like a couple of fucking village idiots. Well, Sanders, well, we're doing just fine, sir. I'm not a fucking sir. I'm a sergeant. He's like, well, I didn't at the time. And for 15 minutes, we had an answer for every question that they could ask. And we played literally the dumbest ass country bumpkin fuckheads that had ever hit Paris Island. We had these guys so freaking mad, their noses were catching on fire while they were screaming. It was hysterical. And finally they're just standing there glaring at us, all four of them. They're like, well, aren't you gonna fucking turn around? And we're like, oh, you want us, oh, okay. And he didn't, I didn't mean slime around recruitment. Snap and pop, this is the Marine Corps. I've only been here 3 minutes. What the fuck is snap and pop? You know, it was hysterical. And they fucked with us for the next 2 days. It's like, Sanders, you're supposed to, like, if you got a wart or something on your head when you go to the barber shop, they're like, just put your finger on the wart and hold it there. Well, Sanders had one. When they got to him with the clippers, he wouldn't move his fucking finger. They're like, son, he's like, you told me to hold it. It was just, yeah, we did the country bumpkin thing forever. We did it until our series drill instructors picked us up. And then it was like, uh-oh, we better not be doing it with Sergeant Hambrick. That little guy, I don't care how tall you were, he could spit right in your eye while he was talking to you, and did. Spit just flew everywhere, and I think he did it on purpose, just to yank your freaking chain as hard as possible. Yeah, they put you on a cattle car to move you from intake to wherever your series is, because intake is in the old wooden buildings on about the center of the island. We were in the 3000 series, which is like on the northwest corner of the island. You could actually see the vehicles going over the causeway and stuff like that from our barracks. And we were in the big brick things with the rose garden right out there. It's like there's the parking lot and all that stuff in the brick barracks building. And it was kind of a simulated parade deck. You know, it wasn't a parking lot, it was just an asphalt space for everybody, you know, to fall out into formation in. And then there was like this patch of just, it looked like they used logs to rototill it kind of thing, you know, and that was the rose garden. We didn't make it from the cattle car to the barracks without our trip to the rose garden. And it was pretty funny, because we all had our fucked up intake haircuts and it's like your utilities are all, you just unfolded them and wore them for the first time. Yeah, by God, when we got it, we didn't look like that when we got in that squad bay that afternoon. We were a mess. And Carr, the black dude, the martial artist across from me, he just, that night at free time was from like 8 until 10. He just walked down and he goes, Sanders and I were sitting next to each other, and he goes, I just hope you guys aren't gonna do this again tomorrow. And I was like, well, we don't plan things, they just happen. And he was like, okay. Yeah, he didn't know whether to hate me or join me most of the time, because he saw the fun we were having. And they actually, they gave Sanders the boot. They just walked up to him one day and, come here. He went in the drill instructor's hut, and then you see him walk out with the senior drill instructor, and then the senior drill instructor comes back in, and then they're down there just picking up his stuff. And he actually lives in Melbourne now. He expatriated, what was that, 1982? And we still talk. In fact, some friends of mine in Cabo want all of us to go surf the big water in Perth over the December break. And Jans is like, fucking A, dude. Yeah, you're coming down here, right? And I'm like, yeah. It's like $5,000 for a round trip ticket. My buddies are filthy freaking rich. I mean, I could have been too if I wasn't so friggin' hard-headed. Well, and I still could be at any given moment. You know, when I went surfing in 2009, I drove that raggedy asshole van down. In fact, that's why it looks the way it does now. The sun in Mexico and stuff just baked all the clear coat and the paint right off it. And a lot of the work that I'm having to do on it is because I never thought to run that thing through the car wash after spending all that time on those beaches, all that salt-covered sand got up under there and all of those little crevices. And now there aren't any crevices because all of that stuff just rotted right the fuck off the van. It's like you go down the road and you can hear the road noise a little more and stuff like that because of it. But when I went down there in 2009, my ex was like, why don't you just give the fuck up and move down here? You know, I can give you any piece of property you want. You're welcome to come live with me if you want. And we didn't part in unfriendly terms. We just parted, just kind of grew apart. She wanted to stop doing drugs and being a Hells Angels old lady and do something with her life, and she did it in real estate. And she went down there, I want to say 81, and just, holy shit, you can just walk a day this way and a day that way and a day, you know, make a big square and then tell the Mexican government you want it, and they're like, oh, take it. They were literally giving land away in the 80s, and now all of that is Americanized and stuff, and she's got tracts of condominiums on 99-year leases and shit like that. I mean, she's making money hand over friggin' fist. So when my brothers called me, it's like, dude, let's go surfing in December. I'm like, fuck, I haven't got any money. I could, you know, I could barely afford gas to go back and forth to school. And they're like, we don't give a shit about money, but you're coming, you know, and I was like, awesome, let's go.
Good deal. All right, well, if that's it, then that concludes our interview, and thank you for your service.
You're welcome.